Welcome. Thanks for being here. Today's practice, we are going to be focusing on core strength. And as far as props go, you might want a yoga block or two, and that'll be mostly for modifying the hand position in our practice. And then also for sort of a feedback prop in some of the bird dogs that we're going to do. And I'll be using the blanket mostly for padding my knees, and we will be on one or two knees at several points during the practice. So if you want that extra padding, grabbing a blanket or a towel. So we are working the core, and maybe you've heard, I'm sure you've heard that term thrown out there. But thinking about the core is not just the abdominal muscles, but the diaphragm, the breathing muscle here that's between your lungs and your abdomen, the pelvic floor, even the muscles in the rib cage, and hip and gluteal muscles also as part of the core as well. And because it's an hour practice, that can be a lot of core. So please remember, you can rest at any time during the practice. You can modify, and you'll see that some of the things I do, I start with a progression, it's a progression starting with something less challenging, leading to more challenging, and you don't always need to do the most challenging version. Especially when we're doing core, sometimes focusing and working on control, doing a simpler, less challenging, air quote, version might actually provide you more benefit and give you more strength and motor control, which is really a huge part of what strength is being able to control the muscles, not necessarily the hypertrophy or how big your muscles are. So we're going to start on our backs in whatever position feels comfortable to you. So you might have a prop under your knees or legs straight or knees bent. We'll be here for a couple of minutes, just settling in and finding the breath. If it's comfortable, closing your eyes so that most of the sensations that you're feeling in your body don't have to do with how your surroundings look, but more about how your body feels. And you might notice here, depending on the time of day that you're practicing or the things that you've already done today, lying here on your back with the spine supported by the earth as opposed to needing to use your core spinal muscles to keep yourself upright can feel lovely. Can feel like a resting position or a release of some of those muscles. Begin to bring your attention to the breath. That expansiveness that happens in the torso, the rib cage, the belly, the back as you breathe in. In this either softening or might even be a contraction of the ribs, the belly as you breathe out. Softening and playing a more passive role of the breath, which is often true on the exhale. But as we work the core, we'll be coordinating breath and movement. And because the diaphragm, because the rib cage, because some of the spinal muscles that contract and release or expand and contract, whatever way you want to think about it, affect movement, but also involved with the breathing. We coordinate the breathing with the movements here. Breathing through the nose, start to slow your breath down. Begin to lengthen it out. So as opposed to shallow breaths or even big, effortful breathing, we are slowing the breath down a little bit. Taking the next few breaths to set an intention for your practice. So recalling the reason you are showing up today, thinking about what made you roll your yoga mat out to set aside this time to be here. It's about reconnecting with the body. It's about releasing tension. Is it about this cross training to make you a better rower? Whatever your reason for being here, bring it to the front of your mind and breathe with intention. So we'll go ahead and bend the knees here, feet flat. Bring your arms out to the sides here if you'd like. And we'll start with this backward and forward pelvic tilting. Small movements here from the lower body or lower abdominal area. We're flattening the lower back into the floor while tipping the tailbone towards the ceiling. And then do the opposite. Press the tailbone into the floor and arch the lower back away from the surface. The breath as we exhale, flatten the lower back. Tailbone tipping up. Inhale, tailbone into the floor, arching the lower back. We go back and forth with these. Exhale, flattening, legs, buttocks stay relaxed. Inhale, arching the back from the surface. And do a few more, just getting used to that connection of the breath and movement, right? So as you engage the abdominal muscles, especially you're breathing out, as you release and stretch them, we're breathing in. And that goes with what's happening with the diaphragm, what's happening with the other breathing muscles here in the body, including pelvic floor engagement. On your next inhale, just allowing this to relax. So we're gonna keep with that pelvic tilting, but add a rotation in here, which is gonna have us work our obliques a little bit more. So those arms are out. We're gonna drop both legs over to one side and notice how that pulls the low back away from the floor. So you do that backward pelvic tilt. You flatten the low back towards the floor, belly button towards the spine. Use your abdominal muscles to pull the knees back up through center. And then knees go to the other side on the inhale. Exhale, press the lower back into the floor, that backward pelvic tilt to pull the knees up through center. We alternate sides, inhaling the knees to the side. Exhale, backward pelvic tilt, low back pressing to the floor. Knees come up. Keep the breathing here. Notice if you started to engage or tighten up through the neck, trying to relax that a little bit. So you could keep it right here with the feet down. It's a little less work for the abs, but it's a really nice feedback, having the feet down and feeling them pull away and then flatten again as the knees come up. But if you'd like a little bit more resistance and challenge, you'll bring your feet up, shins start out parallel to the floor. We drop the legs over towards one side, exhale, flatten the low back, pull the knees up through center. Right? And you may not be able to go over quite as far if you have the feet up, and you might need to use your arms here, especially to help control the descent of the knees to the side towards the end of it, and then the pulling the knees back up through center. Let's do this maybe one more time on each side here. And we'll pull the knees in through center. You could gently hug them in, holding shins or backs of knees, and just rock a little bit side to side. I'm going to lower the feet back down to the floor here. And we're going to do a progression of dead bug. So, or dying, it's really more of like a dying bug because you're moving a little bit. But the most important part here is really engaging and holding the abdominal muscles. So the abdomen, the spine, the rib cage don't really move very much with this. We're start with just the lower body part of this. So feet up, knees bent, shins close to parallel to the floor to start. Press your back ribs into the floor. If that cue doesn't make sense to you, or you start to engage and kind of round everything up, think more about pulling your front hip bones towards each other. Either way, the waist muscles are engaged here. Keep them like that. We'll inhale, tap one foot down. Exhale, pull it back up. Alternating sides. Inhale, lower the other foot. Exhale, bring it back up. If you're here with the knees bent, you can try to keep the knees bent at about 90 degrees. So you're tapping that foot a little bit out away from you. All right, bring the feet back up. You can keep it at just legs or add arm movements. I'm going to start with my arms straight up over the chest, lowering one foot, and the opposite arm goes overhead. Bring it back up on the exhale. Inhale, foot, opposite arm, lower, exhale, come back up. So keep the back ribs pressed down or those front hip bones pulled towards each other. If you'd like more challenge, you stretch that leg out as you lower it. So straightening the knees, stretching the leg out. It's a longer lever arm requiring you to use more force of your core to keep it stable and not allow that forward pelvic tilt. Let's do one more on each side. And we'll pull both knees back in, gently hugging in here, rocking a little side to side. You could keep it at that gentle rock. That might feel the best to you. Or adding a little bit more twist, arms out. You could drop the legs towards one side, maybe stretch that top leg out towards the side wall. Bend the knees, roll onto your back, and drop to the other side, stretching that leg out. And side to side a few times. And eventually, either rolling to your side to sit up or hold the backs of the thighs here. You could rock forward and backward a few times. If you have any issues with the spine, herniated disc or low bone density, roll to your side and push up instead. And eventually we'll come all the way up to sit, and then we'll make our way to hands and knees. Now the next sequence of movements, we're going to be weight bearing down through the knees. If you want that extra padding, adding it in here. We're also weight bearing down through the hands, and we start in this tabletop position, and you could do the modification here or sometime later if you start to feel it in the wrist. You could have wrists under shoulders, palms are flat, or loose fist. You could be down on your forearms or forearms here on the blocks to do a lot of what we're going to do next. Cat and cow to warm up the spine. So we round through the back, tuck the tailbone, tuck the chin, and then we lift the tailbone, belly down, chest forward. And then like the pelvic tilt, we exhale as we flatten the back or round it really, tuck the tailbone and chin, and then we inhale as we open through the belly, lift the hips, the head. And back and forth here a few times. And you can add a little forward, backward weight shift to this. So if that feels right to your body, you can. So as you round the back into cat, you could shift forward a couple of inches. As you arch the spine downward into cow, you could shift backward a couple of inches. So exhaling, rounding the back, shifting forward. Inhale, arching the spine downward, shifting backward. A few more here. We'll bring that forward here into more of that hands and knees position or that tabletop position. And we're moving into a bird dog. So one of the important parts about bird dog is that you don't want your hips to kind of wag here or sink out to one side. So you could use a block or just a pretend one. And actually we're thinking about this block as we rest it here on the sacrum as being a teacup. It's full of hot tea and it's fine china. And we're resting on the sacrum, so it's below the lower back, above the butt cheek part here of your hips. Hands and knees or whatever variation, firm the belly. So we make a solid wall of your abdominal muscles. And then think about lengthening the spine. It's subtle from here, but tailbone and top of head reach away from each other. Keeping that teacup in place, reach one leg back, foot's off the floor, and the toes are pointing down towards the earth. So you could keep it here, just leg involvement, or reach your opposite arm forward here with the thumb up. And then we're going to lower the hand and the knee and work on keeping that teacup really steady as you lower down and as you switch to the opposite side. So we inhale, reach that other leg back, toes point down, long through the spine, option to reach the opposite arm forward, thumb up. And then we exhale, lower hand and knee. So keep going here, alternating legs, balancing that teacup. Inhale, leg and arm, reach out, and you lengthen through limbs and spine, and then exhale, lower. Inhale, reach out, lengthen, exhale, lower. So for me, when I focus on those hips being level, that teacup staying balanced, it's that last little bit of lowering down, or my core has to really engage to keep my hips level. So this little bit of feedback from the block, from that teacup, is making me work a little harder, even though I haven't really added any resistance or any more challenge. All right, lower the knee and the hand. You could take that teacup off. We'll come into resting pose. So it's either child's or puppy. It's hips over heels for child's pose, puppy, hips over knees. But we're letting our forehead rest down on the floor, or stacked hands, or slide a block underneath there. Remember puppy as an alternative to child's if you have low bone density in the spine, herniated disc, or maybe hips and knees don't like the compressed position of the down dog, or you get cramps in your toes. So lots of reasons to change up, and one of them might just be like you enjoyed this puppy pose more. Finding that breath, lengthening it out, remembering that you can rest at any time during the practice. And perhaps a lot of these have felt pretty mild and gentle to you as far as core goes, but it will build up here the more we go. And if you think about control more than like, let's make this harder, do more planks or hold plank for 3 minutes or whatever it is, working on this control of your body is going to be way more important than holding plank for 3 minutes. So we'll come up here when you're ready to hands and knees here again. And coming into a variation of side plank. So I'm moving my, actually I'm going to stretch my left foot to the back of the mat, pivot the foot so the sole of the foot is down, the toes point towards the left, and then pivot your right foot and shin off the mat so they're perpendicular to the mat. Here's a side plank where we're reaching this left arm up. So right arm is down. If that position doesn't feel good on the wrist, you could do something similar here with 2 blocks under that right forearm. Wherever you are with this, lengthen out through the head so your head's not drooping down like a wilted flower. Could stay here, or option to do some leg lifts. With that left leg, we lift up and lower. Lift up and lower. And for this, if you think of this as strength, you would exhale on the lift, inhale on the lower. If you think of it as yoga, we inhale on the lift and exhale on the lower. So whichever makes sense, just keep breathing. So we're using outer hip muscle, the glute medius, to lift, but feel that glute medius on the down leg. It is also working to stabilize you. So remember those glutes, hip muscles are part of your core. All right, lower the hand, lower the knee, coming back onto your mat. Maybe a little wag of the tail, or sit back child's pose, or shifting cat and cow, maybe shake out of that right wrist. And then of course we do this on the other side. So it's right foot back, pivot that heel down towards the left. So the sole of the foot is flat. The left shin is going to pivot off here to off the mat, so it's perpendicular to it. Right arm up. Remember your option with the blocks under the forearm here. You could stay with this. This is already work on the hips. We're already working the obliques here, actually both sides, or the leg lift, and lower. And notice that we're going slowly up and slowly down. So you might inhale up, exhale down, or vice versa. Neck long, so you're not sunk into the shoulders, you're not that wilted flower head. All right, lower down, coming back to that tabletop, hands and knees. Shake out the wrists, wag the tail here. Let the head go, whatever kind of reset you'd like to do here. A little bit more here from hands and knees. So we are starting hands and knees, but you have your hands a little forward of your shoulders. And if you're on your forearms here, on the blocks or the floor, you could just walk your knees back. So there's a little bit more space between the knees and the hands. Hands are a little forward of the shoulder joint. Firm the belly like we did in that down dog, the bird dog, lengthening the spine. And we're shifting forward here into this knee down plank. Now, we're shifting back, but what I want you to focus on is engaging the lower abdominal muscles. So pull the lower abs in to shift the hips back over the knees. So we inhale forward to the knee down plank, and then really engage lower abs. Slow it down, pull that low belly in. Instead of your arms pushing, it's the lower abdominal muscles that are pulling the hips back over the knees. Again, inhale, shift forward, long spine, exhale, low belly, pulls your hips back. Let's do a few more here. You're going to see this again in a moment. So moving from plank to down dog. That's that low belly pulling in. All right, walking it back here to hands and knees, maybe shaking out of the wrist here. Starting to warm up the feet a little bit before we come into down dog. Toes tucked under, and we're shifting our hips towards the heels, mindful of the toes if they're stiff, or the knees if they don't like that compression, and shift it forward again. So we exhale, shift back, so not so much core here. Inhale, shifting forward, although it's always working. Core is always working, so it is working here, but I'm not thinking about it like I was in that last one. So you could keep it here, keep the knees grounded, or next time you shift back, lift the knees, the hips, a brief down dog, heels release towards the floor, lower the knees, shift forward. So we shift back, brief down dog, spine long, lower the knees, shift forward on the inhale. All right, so lowering the knees here in between the down dog and sort of plank, knee down plank. All right, so you could stay grounded in the knees, or go ahead and come on up into that down dog and pausing here for a moment, lengthening the spine. So if you're tight through the backs of the legs, a little bit here to the knees, head relaxed between the upper arms, maybe pedal the feet a little bit or shake the head. So in a moment, I'm going to be moving to plank and then back to down dog. You could always lower the knees and do that same thing we did from that tabletop to the knee down plank. So when you're ready, settle in the down dog, shifting forward into plank. Now pull the low belly in. Low belly pulls in. You slowly lift the hips up and back into that down dog. Nice. Inhale, shift forward. Plank. Exhale, pull that low belly. It's your core instead of your arms that are powering the hips up and back. I'm gonna do a couple more. Next time you land in down dog, we'll stay. Looking forward, we're stepping this left foot between the hands. If it doesn't get there in the first go round, lower that right knee, left hand helping it forward. Sometimes that transition is hard because it's a lot of core pulling in to make space for that foot to come up. And I could tell my core was a little bit fatigued after that. Lower that back knee. And we want to find the length in the spine. So you'll hear me cue this quite a bit in all of my yoga classes. And really with my physical therapy clients, it's that tailbone down, top of the head up. And what's happening here is we're decompressing the spine by the strength of our core and spinal muscles. So those muscles that wrap around the waist that we work in dead bug, here in the upright position, they're like a corset. They pull in and lift up. These stair-step muscles up the spine keep our spine in that nice erect position. So stay long there, interlace the fingers behind the head. I'm going to turn so you can see me here from the back. And we're reaching up through the right elbow. So you inhale, right elbow towards the ceiling. So you open and lengthen through the right side. Exhale, bring it back to center. Inhale, stay on this side. Reach that right elbow up, lengthening from right knee to elbow. Exhale, center. Keep going here. If you feel your head being pushed forward by your hands, gently press that head back. One more. Bring it back into center. Bring both hands down to the floor around that front foot. Step this back into a plank. You could keep the knees up or lower them and lower all the way down to the floor. Now you hold that plank. Don't let the belly sag or back arch as you lower down, elbows by your ribs. Pause here a moment. Coming into a low cobra. Pull the shoulder blades towards the spine, towards the back waist, or maybe think elbows towards your back pockets to peel the head and chest up off the floor. Gaze is down and forward. Exhale, lower. Do that again. Elbows toward your back pockets. Peel the head and chest up off the floor, neck long. Exhale, lower. Let's do that again. Elbows towards back pockets. Lift the head and chest. If it feels good, press up a little higher. Now you could go through hands and knees, pull that low belly in to make your way to down dog, or tuck your toes here, pull that low belly in. It's your core that's pushing your hips up and back, finding that down dog. Take a moment, pedal the feet, shake the head. Looking forward, right foot between the hands, helping it get there. Lower that back knee, lifting your torso. All right, get stable here, using your hands on the wall or piece of furniture if you need to. We want to find that length in the spine. We want to decompress the spine by virtue of our strong core, spinal muscles, tailbone towards the earth, top of the head towards the sky. Hands interlaced behind the head, elbows back a little bit. Notice that you're pushing forward, just gently push back. Even if it means bringing your elbows a little forward. Lengthen up through that left side. Inhale, left elbow towards the ceiling. Exhale it to center. Stay on this left side, reaching up on the inhale. Exhaling it to center. Let's do a couple more. We'll bring both hands down around that front foot here. Step your back foot to the front foot to find a forward fold. Remember your options here. So the one that's for forward fold, protective of the spine, or if you're tight hamstrings, feet wide, butt back, forearms on your thighs, spine is long. Right, so there's no compression going down through your spine here, or the discs, the vertebrae. The ragdoll version is knees a little bit bent or generously bent, upper body draped over, hand resting on the floor or blocks or holding elbows. Either pose, you could sway a little bit. Either pose, you could just gently turn your head side to side. Bring that weight shift back to center. Bend the knees a little more, look forward. Strong legs, we inhale, rise up to stand, reaching up, and then exhale, hands to prayer here at your heart. We're gonna let that go. Shake out your wrists, roll the shoulders. Move that blanket out of the way if you have it there, had it there for your knees. We're coming into mountain pose, which is a lot of what we do in that tailbone down, top of the head up. But we're going to get into it a little bit differently. So those of you who come to my Sunday class often or know this one. So horsey mountain, I'm calling it. So feet are about shoulder distance apart, turning just so you can see me from a profile. We're going to bend through the knees and the hips just a little bit, like you're sitting atop a horse, your feet are in the stirrups. So it's going to help us lengthen the tailbone down. So a little bit of bend in the hips relaxes the hip flexors so they don't resist. Tailbone towards the earth. You're going to feel your pelvis level. You might feel those lower abdominal muscles engage. Top of the head towards the sky. Now the whole waist of abdominal muscles engaging. These spinal muscles lengthening here. Shoulders relaxed. You're breathing. Keep the tailbone reaching down, straightening the legs. Keep that tailbone reaching down. Bring your feet in so they're more normal or hip distance apart. So if you've engaged everything at 100%, dial your effort back to 50 or 60% to keep that length in the spine, but not over-efforting, overworking here, right? Because we still have another half hour of class or so to go. Keep the breathing. Now, we want to keep the length in the spine. We want to keep our hips square to the front, but we're going to rotate the upper body from the belly button and above. So hips square to the front. We inhale, reach both arms up. And then on the exhale, one arm forward, other one goes back, and you're going to turn your gaze, your chest towards that side, but don't let the hips go with you. They stay forward. Inhale, reach both arms up through center, and exhale, we twist the other way. Hips stay forward, tailbone down. Inhale, reach up, center, exhale, twist. Keep going, move with the breath. If you don't like the arm elevation, it's fine. You can take that part out. The main part here is that we are stabilizing from the feet to the belly button, not letting it twist while we twist from above there. And that's going to require spinal muscles, abdominal muscles, pelvic floor. You might even feel your feet awake and working a little bit more. Last one. Come back up, let it all go. You can sweep your arms, shake your hips a little bit, roll the shoulders. So feel that intention you had where you really lengthen up through the waist. So we're doing a little bit more here in standing. I'm starting to feel it, a lot of this core, so take a break if you need it, or choose a less challenging version of some of these poses. Starting at the front of your mat, take a big step back with the left foot here, coming into a warrior two. So that back heel pivots down, left toes are pointing towards that long edge of the mat, front knee bending, toes and knee pointing towards the front end of the mat for this warrior two. Tailbone down, top of the head is reaching up here. We're gonna reach our arms forward and back into that warrior two position. Can you release the shoulders away from the ears so neck feels long? Again, lower body stays here. We're gonna shift from the belly button and above. So lower body stays in warrior two, and we shift the rib cage over that front thigh, and then we bring it back over the hips again. So we're just going forward, not behind them. So we inhale, shift forward, exhale, shift it back over center. Do that a few more times. So we are working obliques here as we shift forward. Both sides are working actually, shifting forward and shifting back. Next time you shift forward, pause, back hand to the hip, hand or forearm to the front thigh. Use the leverage of the arm to open that chest here a little bit more to the side. Back hand could stay on the hip, or you could reach this arm up towards the ceiling. Here's our liftoff one. So imagine there's 100 helium balloons attached to this left wrist. And then there's so much helium, it starts to lift you up and a bird comes by and pops 10 of them, and then you slowly lower back down to the thigh. You add 10 more balloons. You inhale, lift off, and then you exhale to lower. Let's do a few more. You could also just keep it grounded, right? No helium balloons. Next time you lift up, rise back into that warrior two. Bring your arms down here, maybe straighten that front leg. You could swing them out or roll the shoulders. And then as you're ready, bend the front knee again. Now this time I'm gonna pivot my back heel up so my hips are square to the front. And I'm in this crescent lunge, back heel up, or shortened stance, back heel down. We wanna find that long spine again, tailbone towards the earth, top of the head towards the sky. Decompressing the spine, lengthening the waist and the neck. Hands on the hips, hinge forward from your spine, pausing when there's a straight line from the back heel to the top of the head. Similar to our bird dog, we firm the belly. We lengthen tailbone and top of the head away from each other. You could keep your hands here on your hips if you've got shoulder issues, or reach them towards the back foot. I'm gonna make big sweeping movements with my arms, sort of snow angel-like. We inhale, sweep the arms out to the sides and forward, and then we exhale, sweep them out, reaching the hands towards the back foot. Inhale, sweep out and forward. Exhale, sweep out and back. A couple more. Slight chin tuck so the back of the neck stays long. We even work those spinal muscles here too. Reach forward and then rise up. And then step this all to the front. Shake out your legs, roll the shoulders there a bit. All right. So now we step back with that right foot. So right foot coming back into this warrior two. Pivot that heel down so the toes, right toes point out towards the long edge of the mat. Front knee bending. Hips are angled out here towards the side, but more towards the front of the mat as opposed to directly to the side in that warrior two. Tailbone down, top of the head reaching up. The more space we have between the vertebrae, the more freedom of movement we're gonna have in our spine. Arms reach out. Notice as the shoulders shrug up towards the ears. If so, allow the shoulder blades to slide down the back. All right, lower body stays here. Feet to belly button, basically the same place. We inhale, reach the ribs forward. Exhale, bring them back over the hips. Inhale, we reach them forward. Exhale, back over the hips. 2 or 3 more here. It might not be a big excursion of movement for you, working on the control. Shift forward one more time, pause. Back hand to the hip, either front hand or forearm to the thigh. Leverage of this arm against the leg to open that chest a little bit more here towards the right. Right hand could stay down if you've got shoulder issues, or reach that arm up. Palm facing out, neck long. Staying here in this side angle is an option, or those 100 helium balloons on that right hand lift you off on your inhale, 10 pop, and you exhale, slowly lower. You add 10 more, you inhale, lift just a few inches, and then you exhale, lower. A couple more. I wonder how many helium balloons it would actually take to lift us up. Next time you lift, let it raise you up to that warrior two. Straighten the front leg, swing your arms out, just a little bit of a break on the legs, the arms here. Bending that front knee again. Now we're gonna pivot the back heel up and we square our hips to the front instead of the side. Crescent lunge, back heel up, or shorten the stance, back heel down. Front knee bending though. We lengthen the spine, tailbone down, top of the head reaching up. Hinge forward from your hips. Pause when the torso comes in line with that back leg. Firm the belly, slight chin tuck. Shoulders away from the ears. You could stay with hands on the hips or the arms sweep. We reach them back first, and then we inhale, sweep out and forward. Exhale, sweep out and back. Keep the abs engaged. Otherwise, it's a lot of strain on the lower back. the more we can get the core helping us out here, the more stable we are, and the less strain to the lower back. We reach the arms forward and inhale, lift up. Exhale, step it to the front, shake out your legs, roll those shoulders. So we're gonna work here on balance. And let's do just a little bit here with the feet, the toes, before we move into balance, because, well, you'll see. So I'm gonna have you standing, feet hip distance or shoulder distance, whatever feels comfortable. Lift all 10 toes, spread them out, and then just lay them down, spread out. Don't worry about what order they come down to the floor, but just trying to make some space between your toes. And do that again. Lift all 10 toes, place them down, spread out. Keep breathing with this, trying not to hold the breath, which sometimes when you're focusing really hard is what happens. And then not looking at your feet, so looking forward here. Find a spot to keep your gaze focused on. And notice, regardless of whatever you deem as success of being able to spread your toes out, what's happening at the arches of your feet. They are lifting up off the floor, almost like kind of suction cup in the arches here, creating this sort of vacuum underneath. And then notice how you got into that mountain pose without me even cueing tailbone down, top of the head up. And maybe, just maybe, you can subtly feel that engagement of the core, again, without thinking about firming the belly or pulling the front hip bones towards each other. Maybe, just maybe, you feel your pelvic floor engaging a little bit here as you feel that arch in the feet. All right, let it go. Shake it out. Okay? So balancing on one foot or tiptoe of the other foot. The more we can have that length in the spine, the more we can have our toes spread and that little arch lift of the foot, the more ways we can react to losses of balance. So I'm going to use my yoga block here for this because I'm doing a combo of balance and core, which is always true. There's always core involved in balance. Now you could step off your mat for a less squishy surface to make it easier. If you're challenged by balance, you could have your hand or your elbow close by a wall or a steady piece of furniture. So we're bringing one foot forward, spread those toes out like we just did, place them down, spread out, shift all of your weight onto it, or most of it. The other foot is going to be out behind you, so toes are down. So block or pretend block, we're going to reach that up and over the opposite shoulder. So I've kind of created a diagonal with that leg and my hands, focusing the gaze on a non-moving spot, tailbone down, top of the head up. You could stay here, you could play with lifting the back foot, knowing you could always put it down, or you could pull the knee forward, block to knee, and belly button towards spine. So there's a little bit of a crunch here, but my gaze stays forward. And then I inhale, reach it back out along that diagonal. So exhale, pull it in, belly button towards spine, and then we inhale, lengthen like we do in that bird dog. Couple more, knowing you could always put the foot down at any time. Maybe there's a little pit stop on the way up and the way down. Come back up, whew, let it go, shake out the legs. And then we do the other side. That foot forward, spread those toes, shift your weight onto it. I'm gonna turn so you can see me here from the side. That other foot is out and back. It's our kickstand for now. And then we block, or pretend block, is up over the opposite shoulder. So leg and arms kind of on the diagonal pattern. Focusing your gaze on the spot straight ahead. We find that length in the spine. Stay here, play with lifting the toes up. These are all options. Each one's gonna make it a little bit more challenging. Maybe you add the movement where you exhale, knee forward, block to knee, belly button towards spine, and then we inhale, reach it out long again. Exhale, we pull in, engaging your abs. Inhale, we lengthen. 2 more. All right, let it go. Shake it out, roll those shoulders. You could take that block, bring it on back to the floor. We don't need it now. Coming up to the front of the mat. Inhale, get taller, maybe reach up. Exhale, find that forward fold. It could be the forearms on the thighs or hands toward the floor in that ragdoll. Take a few breaths here, maybe shake that head out. Add a little sway. And then bend your knees enough to bring your hands to the floor. Step this back into a down dog. Lower both knees. Find child's or puppy pose here, coming to resting position. Or rest on your belly or take a seat, whatever works for you. But finding a place where you can return to your breath. Begin to slow the breathing down. Coming back to your intention for the practice, recalling the reasons you rolled your mat out today, why you set aside this hour to be here, dedicated to this practice, to your body, to your overall well-being. Staying here longer if rest feels right to you, or coming into kind of cross-legged position here. So we're coming into a seated position, and we're going to do a little bit here, a little bit more with the core. Maybe you're not surprised. This one's going to be working the hips a little bit too, and I'm going to give you several variations. The final variation is the most challenging, and what I find that people find the most challenging is not so much the core, but the hip engagement that we need from this. So that might be the limiting factor for you. So what we're going to do is lean towards the right and untangle that left leg. So now our legs are in this sort of pinwheel position. So my right inner knee is facing up, my left inner knee is facing down. And I'm leaning away from my legs, and you could be on your forearm here. So it's this left leg that we're going to move, and we're going to sweep it forward. So the foot's going to stay on the floor, and I sweep it forward and over the other leg, and I come into a little bit more upright position, and then I'm leaning away from the legs and sweep it back to that original position. So I inhale, sweep the leg forward, rise up. Exhale, I slide that leg back and lean away. So moving here, foot on the ground, right? So you're not having to lift the weight of the leg. But if you wanted more challenge, you lift that leg and it hovers over the floor as you go up and lean away, right? So maybe you play with that. Now you're using your hip flexor. That's where people are going to start to feel it. And now if you wanted even more challenge, look ma, no hands. Hands on the hips without that support. Are you breathing? Are you still with me? I'm going to do one more. Okay, bring that leg away. Whew, put that hand down. Take a little break. We're going to stretch the quad of that left leg here. So reaching back, left hand finding that foot towards the heel. You could stay here. You could lower down on that right forearm here for a little more stretch. A little more hip flexor stretch will be to pull that thigh back a little bit. You could use the strap here if it's hard for you to get your foot. Or you could do another variation of the quad stretch. This is just a convenient one because we were already here. And I like the variety of stretching muscles from different positions. Because maybe you'll find your favorite one. I'm going to let that foot go, rise up, sweep the legs around to the other side. So now my left inner knee is up, my right inner knee is resting on the ground, and I'm leaning away from the legs. So We're sweeping this right leg forward here, but remember you can let it slide on the floor here to start. You're gonna rise up to a little bit more upright seated position, and then we lean away, sliding that foot back away from the torso. So inhale, foot comes around, you rise up, exhale, it slides away, you lean away. So the option is to keep that foot sliding on the floor, that's less hip flexor work. Or foot hovering, doing that same motion, still leaning on that arm to give you, your core, a little bit of external support. Or, more challenging is not using that hand, right? But you're working the core and your hip a little bit more. So what I find sometimes is people tend to cramp here. So just noticing that, you could always put the hand back down, you could always slide the foot on the ground. It's not cheating, it's listening to your body. We do one more. And then leg comes away. Whew. We get to lean on that hand. All right, here's the quad stretch of the right leg. So you pull that heel towards your butt, find it with your hand. And just glance, you don't want that heel up above the hip, so right heel pulling towards the right butt cheek. Staying on your hand or come to your forearm. Maybe you slide that thigh back. But looking for stretch, not pain in the knee, not pain in the quads or the low back. Sometimes when the quads or hip flexors are really tight and you go into the stretch, it can kind of give you a little pivot point at the low back or even at where the bottom most lumbar vertebra meets the sacrum. And it can feel kind of pinchy and uncomfortable. It usually means your foot's too close to your butt. You might need a strap or a different variation. All right, we're gonna release that foot, rise on up, come onto your back. Bring your feet flat, so knees are bent, feet flat, but your feet are out a little bit wider than your hips. They may be on the edges of your mat here. Arms come out to the sides, and we're dropping both legs over to the right. Now notice we kind of came into that pinwheel position again, right? But we're not sitting, so the spine is supported. Right knee is pointing towards the right wall, but my left knee is pointing towards the foot of the mat. So my knees are not symmetrical, they're not stacked, and I start to feel a little bit more length and opening through this left hip flexor and quads. You could stay here, or more sensation would be to bring that right ankle on the outside of that left knee to give it a little bit more. This is a little too much on my SI joint, so I'm gonna leave my feet down and turn my head away from my legs. So it's a spinal twist, but we're getting some hip flexor stretch on the left side and maybe some oblique stretch here on the left side. Now, use your abdominal muscles like we did that very first core exercise. Pull the belly button towards spine, low back towards the floor, knees come up through center, and that way we're not tweaking the low back. And maybe you reposition the hips here, do a few windshield wipers, and we do this to the other side. So remember, our feet are wider than our hips. So they're gonna stay out in that position and knees drop over to the left. So left knee points toward the left wall, but the right knee is pointing more towards the foot of the mat. So you start to get some hip flexor stretch here, maybe even up into the abdomen a little bit. You have that option for a little bit more stretch, left angle on the outside of that right thigh, but I'm not going there. Head could turn away from the legs. Find that lengthened breath, slowing it down here. Now engage your abs to come up. Belly button towards spine, low back towards the floor, abs pull the knees up through center. Once you're there, you can pull your knees in, gently rock side to side. Maybe you find a happy baby. Maybe it's a different hip stretch for you, or some other pose or stretch or movement that your body is requesting or your practice feels incomplete without. And think about how you'd like to set yourself up here for your Shavasana, that is, for your relaxation. So maybe it's just knees bent as we started at the beginning, legs up the wall, legs on a chair. If you feel like your hip flexors got worked on some of this core, that might be a nice recovery position for you. I'm going to find that legs up the wall for myself. Could be a pillow under the knees. You could be on your belly or in a fetal pose on your side. Any other props, welcome to add on here. We've been working hard for the last 55 minutes or so. So give yourself a chance to rest instead of hurrying on to your next task for work or the house or making dinner or whatever your next task is that you need to do. Can you give yourself these few minutes to really rest? Recalling that rest is actually when the anabolic part of strength training happens, meaning this is literally when our muscles hypertrophy is when we rest. So if we don't rest, we're not getting the benefits of strengthening. Rest is also when our nervous system incorporates all this new information. So if you found a new way of engaging your core, or your spine or the pelvic floor of the feet, this is when your nervous system starts to memorize it so that when you try it again, it's there in your back pocket. And if you remember from the beginning, I talked about motor control. This is a big part of strength and core, pelvis, and spine stability. So let yourself rest. Take an inhale through the nose. Open the mouth, let out a sigh. And again, let the breath go. No longer thinking about when or how we're breathing. Letting your body rest, not needing to engage or lengthen or contract or let go at any certain step or sequence. Rest for the next few minutes.
Begin to deepen your breath. Make some gentle movements here, maybe turning the head, wiggling the fingers, the toes, circling the ankles, the wrist. If it would feel good to you, you could reach your arms overhead and inhale, stretch and lengthen. Exhale, let it go. Bend the knees, roll to your side. Pause for a moment here if you can. Taking this opportunity before you return to your evening, your day, your tasks ahead. Appreciating your body, your breath, your health, your yoga practice. Pressing up to a seated position. Thank you all for being here, sharing your practice, your energy. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste.